I mean, it's a guy that you outweigh by 50, 70 pounds. Just popped your head off like a Pez dispenser. Look at this. Pez. I Pez'd you. It's a verb. There is a YouTube channel called Big Brain Football, and I don't know how I stumbled across this video in which he did a breakdown of the Texans defense, but I really, really liked it because he put a lot of time into the video editing. It's really impressive stuff that I wish I knew how to do or had the time to do, but it was really good, and I thought he caught on a lot of the nuances of the Texans defense. So I just want to show you a few clips. There's a link in the description below. Here, I'll put this up. You can watch these on, but just a really good view of like what makes some of the Texans players and what makes the defense pretty remarkable. We'll start off with a play that I broke down a couple weeks ago. He just does it with much better graphics right here. This is on the Texans disguising and mixing up their blitzes.
2 interior defensive linemen stunting inside, and a walked up linebacker who's going to wrap all the way around to the opposite B gap. And as we let this play, we see it works very well. They get good penetration and end up with a sack. But as we transition to this next play against the Bears, we're going to see a very similar look with a cool twist. Because when we pause this at the beginning of the play, it looks like we're getting the exact same action. But instead of continuing to the front side A gap, now 97 is going to become that backside B gap wrapper, and the linebacker is now going to wrap to the front side C gap. And this misdirection causes the offensive line to lose track of 97, leading to a sack.
And I want to show you one more thing about this. This is where Blitzology comes into it. And I was really lucky to have played for Dom Capers, because when it came to designing blitzes, it's so much more than just the X's and the O's. It's everything else that comes in between.
Because
if you watch the defensive end coming inside, like right there, he's taking a hard step towards the B gap, and that offensive guard is focused on him. 97 is hitting hard to that A gap. They're selling it. So he's taking that hard step upfield, and the nose tackle is taking a hard step towards the center to get them in that fight. They're in fight or flight mode. They're like, all right, this is my guy. But then when you see them come inside, Barnett takes the tackle with him, and by the time he reacts to it, it's too late. And then Mario Edwards really does a nice job. This is key too. He keeps a tight radius on the corner. A lot of times the young defensive players like me, when I missed a sack my rookie year, you get all excited. You see all that open space and you just run into the wide open space. Mario Edwards, savvy veteran, just comes around, keeps it tight, gets the sack on Caleb Williams, one of 478 he would have that year. Next one, Danielle Hunter. Really like the graphic and the thing he did with this. It's like the pitch tunneling graphics you see with pitchers.
Techniques is this arm drag where he controls the outside arm of the tackle with his left hand, rips his inside arm through to the outside tricep of the tackle, and then pulls himself around the edge. As a counter move, he uses this inside spin where he rips his inside arm through like he's going for the arm drag and then spins back into the B gap. And when we overlay these two clips on top of each other, we see just how similar these moves look to an offensive tackle. He takes a hard jab step inside, he rips the inside arm through, and at this moment, he can either decide to spin back into the B gap or drag the outside arm and continue around the edge.
So the cool thing about Danielle Hunter is I think a lot of times people, when they watch pass rushers, I think a lot of people have an appreciation for the guys that are good at their various moves. And some guys do really, really well with two bread and butter moves, but that look very similar. And it's like a pitcher that has two pitches and that's enough. And then you've got other guys that have 6 or 7 pitches in their arsenal, and they're artists with all of them. That's what Danielle Hunter is as a pass rusher. That's not what Will Anderson needs to be. But the thing that Will Anderson can take from it is that importance on everything looking the same. And a lot of young pass rushers, the mistakes they'll make when they start to try to add an arsenal is they think of a move as, oh, okay, it's a counter move. So I'm going to hit him with an arm drag, and then I'm going to spin under. And it's not. It's a lot more like jazz music. It's like it's improvisational as you go. Danielle Hunter probably has times where he has a plan because a guy is oversetting on him and he knows he can hit him with a spin move. But a lot of times it's you hit that first move and that's what you're planning on. But the muscle memory, because you've drilled it so much, is that you get to a certain spot and, oh, nope, you feel it. It's time to spin back. That's what Danielle Hunter is so good at. is just making things automatic to the point where it looks like a choreographed dance, and it's not. It's just him reacting to the situation. He knows what his first move's going to be. I mean, this is what it's like for most of the great pass rushers. And for a guy like Will, it's really good to have Daniil around, because I can just remember, like, I wasn't a pass rusher, I was a run stuffer, but I watched guys work and I got tips along the way. The biggest lesson is always, no, commit to your first move. You're going to beat him with a speed rush. The counter comes when, the speed rush isn't there, and your body just automatically hits it. I think Will's gotten a lot better at that, hitting a sequence of moves, because usually most sacks come on either your second or third move. It's rare that a guy just dusts somebody around the edge, and if they do, it's also because they've set things up earlier in the down. That part of Daniil Hunter's game is where having Daniil in the building is, I think, a lot more valuable than having Jonathan Grenard when it comes to how do the young guys see and what do they learn from them. Because look, you could say, if you're a Vikings fan, you could argue that the Texans were stupid to let go of Jonathan Grenard and bring in an older player and pay him as much money when Jonathan Grenard is so young. I get it 100%, and they're not wrong. I think the tutelage part of it is big, and I think it helps just having guys like that. They've done a really good job of surrounding Will Anderson with veteran players. They've had at least 3 guys in the D-line room who are in their 30s at any given time, and I think it still remains that way right now. Mario Edwards, obviously not as much of an edge rusher. Danico Autry, Barnett's got to be in his 30s, right? Next one from Big Brain Football. This was an explanation of one of the Tua Tagovailoa interceptions that I feel like it lets Tyreek Hill off the hook a little bit, because some people have blamed Tyreek Hill for not adjusting to this route, when in fact it was Tua Tagovailoa not realizing that the Texans had duped him with their disguised coverage.
Run a glance route with Tyreek.
So they're going to be talking about the Texans right now. It looks like a cover 3. You got the deep free safety and a couple cornerbacks there on other side. So it looks like the soft spot in the coverage is going to be up underneath the free safety.
Hill into this same space that Zay Flowers caught the ball. But the catch is the Texans aren't running cover 3. They're running an inverted Tampa 2. So instead of pedaling, that middle of the field safety is going to sit down right in that zone with his eyes on Tua and jump this route for an interception.
And it's really one of the things where Tua, one of the things he's struggled to adjust to, and I think the Texans brilliantly used it against him, is that the pre-snap look isn't what you're going to see after the snap. And he's really, really comfortable and incredibly fast at getting rid of the ball when he knows what coverage he's seeing. If you can make it murky, it gets tougher for him. And the Texans had set him up with that earlier in the game with a cover 3 look, but then also in previous games where at times they'd allowed stuff up underneath. My excitement about this is that this is something that they can build on. They're doing that last year with 2 rookies in the secondary. Jalen Petrie, who wasn't on the field at that point because of his injury. Jalen Petrie playing in his role for the first time. The amount that they'll be able to disguise in some of the little head games that you got to be careful with when you got a lot of young guys back there who are just trying to get their head straight and their eyes right. They're going to be able to do a lot more of that this year. And for whatever teams have figured out about the way the Texans defense operates, they're going to be able to add those wrinkles to counteract that. That part's really cool. I like that Big Brain Football added this just because this is an underappreciated and sometimes forgotten element of physical linebacker play that I know D'Amico Ryans has not forgotten about.
Speaking of violence, that's exactly how he deals with offensive linemen. Watch how he punches and extends on this offensive guard and gets back into the hole to make the tackle.
Yeah. The stack and shed has really become like a forgotten about or little cared about skill when people evaluate draft prospects. I blame Ray Lewis, because once people saw Ray Lewis not have to engage anybody at all because he was so fast, people started dreaming of that and various other great linebackers. But this is beautiful. Just boom. You know how embarrassing that is for that offensive lineman? I mean, it's a guy that you outweigh by 50, 70 pounds. Just popped your head off like a Pez dispenser. Look at this. Pez. I Pez'd you. It's a verb. Azeez Al-Shaair, I missed the music, the jaunty music. Azeez Al-Shaair, I'm excited about coming back and being healthy, and hopefully, despite all the coverage things that we've talked about with the linebackers and where they struggle in pass coverage, it's manageable as long as guys are dialed in and doing what they're supposed to be doing, and as long as the guys in the secondary are playing as well as they are. There's really no replacement for just that level of football violence. It's so beautiful. Other thing that I'm glad that Big Brain Football noticed was this under I guess less heralded defensive lineman that if you weren't watching the Texans last year wouldn't have realized he made as many big plays as he did.
Shout out Tim Settle Jr. because when I was watching this film, this guy was making a ton of plays, including this one against 9-time All-Pro offensive guard Zach Martin, where he throws him by so hard it looks like he's got food poisoning.
I don't like that. I don't appreciate the fart sound. Kind of gross. But we should also point out that Zach Martin I think that was the game where Zach Martin decided it was time to retire. He was banged up and hurt. Tim Settle had some really good plays against other healthy offensive linemen. When we talked to Nick Caserio, or he either brought it in a press conference or when he was on with us with Payne and Prendergrass, he said that Tim Settle just had to get his weight under control last year. And my first impression of him during camp last year was, wow, that is a big dude who can move. He has really got a lot of wiggle to him for a guy at his size. And I remember talking to Caserio about it, and I think it was off air. It was when we were waiting to interview him. And I was like, man, Settle can really, really move for a big guy like that. And I could sense that Caserio wasn't all in on me being as bullish about Tim Settle. And I guess what it was they felt like he just needed to lose weight. And remember, he missed a lot of time during training camp. If he can get his weight under control, that might end up being a low-key, really brilliant signing because he made some big, big plays for him last year. You are always the happiest when talking about football violence. Right. Football violence, like D'Amico. D'Amico looks happy, and he's a solid citizen, unlike me. I think you will see a different defense this year because D'Amico has more weapons. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, I would agree, specifically. Christian Harris, if he can be healthy. I think one other thing that Christian Harris brings, aside from just potentially, really, if he can realize his potential in pass coverage, that brings an element that the Texans are missing. But also in the first half of last season, they were not in their base 4-3 alignment hardly at all. They played with two linebackers or less most of the first half of the season. That's what most teams do these days. They're in nickel way more than they're in base. But there are times where you'd like to have some hosses up there and you'd have to have a heavy front seven to stop the run. And I think they just didn't have enough guys that they trusted to do that. I mean, the linebacker room was really banged up a couple of times with injuries or suspensions between Toa and Azeez Elshire. So the ability to actually line up in 4-3, I think EJ Speed gives you that potential too, to just line up in 4-3, have speed demons all over the place, but who also are really good at playing the run. Like Christian Harris and EJ Speed, if they're in the backfield and it's nickel, then you might lose a little bit in some respects, but if they're playing pass coverage the way I think they're physically capable of, and maybe they just haven't been coached the right way. EJ Speed's coach in Indianapolis was Richard Smith, who I've never been a huge fan of, and yet I'm told he's a good linebackers coach. We'll see. Yes, and is Christian Harris playing this year? That's the question. D'Amico said he's scheduled and he'll be ready to go. We've heard this from various coaches before when maybe they're optimistic about a player, but he wasn't out there during OTAs. He wasn't playing, but he was out there. It wasn't like he was holding out or anything, but he just wasn't out there getting action during OTAs.